Welcome everyone to this webinar about ecomobility. My name is Marloes Reining and I'll be your facilitator today. I'm a director of the Regenerative Collaborative of South Africa. Who are we? The Regenerative Collaborative is a non-profit organization focused on transforming the built environment into a regenerative one. We promote strategies and approaches that bring regenerative design and construction to life. We work collectively to inspire, educate, create awareness, and contextualize regenerative built environment approaches to the South African context or African. And we make a real effort to showcase local projects, local people, local companies that are aligned with our goal, which is creating a regenerative future. Yeah, so we really like to showcase local project, local building, local, like whatever. If you know a great speaker or a great topic for our webinars, just get in touch with us. We would really like and appreciate your inputs. If you're interested in more of our webinars, as I mentioned, we have a YouTube channel where we are hosting all the webinars from the last 3 years already. Can't believe we're already doing this 3 years. So if you want to look back at some of them, there's some really interesting ones hosted there. If you know somebody or want to become a sponsor of these webinars, that would be great. It's a small amount just to cover the cost of the CPD validation. It would really help us to cover our cost of these webinars. It's a voluntary organization, so these webinars are brought to you by volunteers, but just the CPD validation is costing us money, and it would really help to have a sponsor for that. This month, our validation fees were waived by SIAC, so we don't always have to pay, but it's always nice to have a sponsor for these webinars as well. If you want to follow us, some of the good spaces are on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Eventbrite, our registration platform. It would really help us if you like us on either platform. Again, coming back to the sponsor, if we can show we have a good following, then sponsors are usually more likely to provide sponsorship. So yeah, just a like would help us a lot. All right, but today we're talking about ecomobility. And I was asking one of my best friends, ChatGPT, to tell me what is ecomobility and what does it mean for South Africa. And he said it refers to sustainable and environmental friendly transportation options that reduce the reliance on fossil fuels, decrease carbon emissions, and promote a healthier urban environment. And I said, okay, but what does that now actually include? And he said, like, it includes public transportation, non-motorized transport, electric and hybrid vehicles, carpooling and ride sharing. And it also included urban planning, which I thought was a really nice addition, that it's really about planning and infrastructure and how do we accommodate for these kind of mobility options. So I thought he was quite on par with the definition for South Africa. And then he went on saying, like, the government is really promoting and putting lots of money to the infrastructure, which I sort of thought, nah, that's not really the case in our country. But we've got two speakers who will share their opinions about that as well. And first up, we have Andile. And Andile is a chief executive director at Citycon. He's an urban enthusiast with extensive experience as an executive and consultant in development planning and strategy. He's currently leading the Rosebank Green e-Micromobility pilot project as a director. And this initiative is a collaboration with the Rosebank Management District, the City of Joburg Municipality, and the Greater Alexandra Chamber of Commerce, Mobility Center for Africa, and various private companies. And he will be presenting and explaining a lot more about that project. And then second up, we have from Cape Town, Mzikhona. He's the founder and managing director of the Langa Bicycle Hub, which also serves as a communication liaison officer at EDP. He established the Langa chapter of the Community Action Network in response to COVID-19, using bicycles to deliver medication and meals in Langa. And the Langa Bicycle Hubs collects old bicycles, teaches riding skills, and builds bikes suited for informal settlements. It empowers the community to use bicycles for transportation. So I think we have two really successful and experienced speakers to talk about eco-mobility and two completely different projects, but two very exciting projects to present to us today. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand over to Andile.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very happy to be here and excited to hear more about the Regenerative Collaborative. My discussion today will be around the Rosebank e-Micromobility pilot project that Citizen Africa has been leading in association with the Mobility Center for Africa. And the first point, Marloes, to talk about ecomobility. Ecomobility, e-mobility, and the way that we've been referring to it as e-Micromobility is all the same thing, number one. But number two, it is, as your best friend has described it, in more environmentally friendly ways of moving around. And it's moving around people and goods. For me, it's actually very exciting because your best friend actually has mentioned urban planning. For many years, I found myself as a bit of a fish out of water dealing with mobility issues. I'm a town planner by training, so more than 20 years into it in working in a city and working with cities and government in general. I found myself in the space of mobility because it's two sides of the same coin, working with moving goods and people around, as well as planning the land uses, because those are the generators of different types of movement at different times of day. That's where really the genesis of this project comes from. It comes from a smart cities context where most of my consulting work is around policy. It's around development strategy in general, policy, and as well as a lot of work in the inner cities and the city improvement district stuff that I've done. So we picked Rosebank as an area, really a very small node. And with the project itself, I'd like to cover a few short sections, tell you a bit about the project, describe it, and how we are looking to implement it, as well as how we want to upscale the project. But importantly, talk about the technological innovation and sustainable impacts. Then give us a bit of a view about what the economic mobility element is that the project is trying to target. And then we look at some assumptions that I'd like to question, that I've been questioning of myself as well as a professional working in urban areas with cities, African cities in particular, and the challenges that we face. To begin, the work that we've done is building on the advocacy work that the Mobility Center for Africa has done. And there we were motivating for a change where micromobility can contribute to decarbonizing the last mile of transportation and to our growth and development goals, which is the second part of it, the growth and development goals of Africa, African cities, and basically the global south. Micromobility is everything that has less than 4 wheels. That is an important distinction in South Africa because a lot of the micromobility in South Africa, the vehicles, the devices that we've got are not included in policy. We've got roads and cities that are built for motor vehicles, trucks, taxis, and vans, everything else. And we've got policy that's very well articulated around all these other modes of transport, but not very much so for anything with less than 4 wheels. So 3-wheelers, your 2-wheelers, your bicycles, all of that. There's been not only policy silence, but quite a different perspective of what that is. It's been captured in non-motorized transport. And I think for the past 15 or 20 years, we've got a whole set of policies around non-motorized transport that have assumed that everything smaller than a 4-wheeler doesn't have an engine. And this becomes quite complicated now when we're looking at e-bikes, both that are pedal assisted and ones that have full-on motors and batteries, and you've got trikes that have got that have got motors. We don't have anywhere to hang them in the policy that we have in South Africa. So the advocating for change was built on bringing down congestion and bringing down our emissions. I think the statistic is that for every vehicle that you see on the road, it's got an average of about 1.2 passengers, and the average trip is about 5 to 10 kilometers that people are traveling with their four-wheelers, and they're basically moving. You've got a vehicle that is moving its own weight up and down rather than moving enough people or a viable number of people around. The status quo is really where we're moving goods and people with much bigger vehicles. And although motorbikes, as we've got them in the e-delivery sector, are reducing the emissions, the aim is to get to net zero, and to get to net zero in a way that responds to all our challenges that we've got, not only decarbonizing, but addressing employment and addressing city form, basically transforming our cities. If you have been involved in some of the discussions in South Africa, lots around spatial transformation, transforming the apartheid city, and really grappling with what the urban form has become and directing it into a place where it can begin to work for people, of which it was never designed to do, both in urban areas as well as townships and rural areas alike. So the Rosebank Micromobility project sits somewhere in the middle of this, where we're looking at micromobility powered by new energy sources. And new energy sources, which is the E in e-mobility or e-micromobility, is not only electricity, it's also hydrogen. It includes, hydrogen is one of the sources, but it includes a whole range of, there's gas. I've heard of gas-powered vehicles as well as a combination, and all kinds of hybrid vehicles that are there. So when we talk about initially we were talking about electrifying, but now we're talking about the whole mix of energy sources that are optional and available in the movement. So what we're looking at is that we're testing the operational feasibility of using delivery e-bikes powered by solar energy to fully decarbonize e-commerce in the last mile. That's what we're trying to do in the Rosebank e-Micromobility pilot project. And one of the main outcomes is the case study on decarbonizing this last mile delivery. There's 5 components to it. One is the e-bikes themselves that are there. We've got 15 e-bikes that are going to be donated by private sector players. We're looking at e-delivery, exactly as you know it. It's your Uber, your Mr. Delivery, your Take-A-Lots. All those delivery platforms would be sharing their data, anonymized, of course, for the duration of the pilots, as well as renewable energy. We are looking at building a kiosk which is going to charge the batteries of the e-bikes that will be part of the pilot. The e-bikes themselves, they've got removable batteries, and each battery lasts about 80 to 120 kilometers. That's anywhere for a delivery cycle from about 4 to 5 hours of the day. So the pilot is going to test the swappable technology, or the principle of swapping your battery in the middle of the day, so that the delivery rider can continue to do deliveries for the rest of the day. The riders themselves, which is something that is currently excluded in most discussions about e-delivery and that. The riders are coming from Alexandra. The idea is that, especially with pedal-assisted bikes, e-bikes, there's no need for a license. So the idea is that the youth that will be getting on board will train them up to be able to provide this service and act as a delivery driver, gainfully employed for the duration of the pilot. And the idea is that once they're able to do this over the period of the pilot, they can then enter the sector. And the reason why we're doing this in the pilot is that we are seeing this as an opportunity for job creation, especially for South Africans, especially for youth, and because the whole e-commerce as a sector is one of the few sectors in South Africa that is built to be growing in the next few years, upwards of 20-30% worth of growth that has been projected. And then the last part of this pie is the cityscape. This is where my domain expertise lays. The idea is that we'd love to map all this and put all this data together on the city itself, Rosebank being quite a hilly part of the city. So we'd be able to map preferred routes and performance of the bikes along these different routes from the Rosebank Mall area through to the different locations of delivery. So there's a spatial analysis component to it. The reason why we put this pilot together was, number one, to open the dialogue around what is a city that works? And can green mobility begin to answer those questions? And instead of talking in general terms, be quite specific about what is the necessary ecosystem that we need to have in place to have green technology in the mix of a working African node, let's put it that way, because it's Rosebank in particular. This is the same study is designed to be replicable in different locations. The second part of it, which is the partnership approach, is co-creating enabling policy. You'll see in the next slide that there's a set of partners which include the city of Joburg as well as the TAG, Transport Authority Gauteng, who are partners of the project. And they're specifically included because the outputs of this project would be translated into concept notes that would then be in the public domain, and both entities could take those and begin to inform policy. One of the major blind spots, which I don't think we were even aware of it when we started this project, is that if you're sitting in government, it's this whole e-delivery sector is completely opaque. You can't see what's going on. Therefore, government is also in a bit of a catch-22 where they're expected to act, but they don't know how to begin to regulate the sector, the different players, and regulate it in a way that allows the sector to continue to grow as well. So that's what this pilot does. And then the last part is build youth businesses. These two goals in our implementation approach solve for two of the biggest problems. Number one, we're informing and impacting city bylaws and the transport policy because of the policy silence. And policy silence, believe it or not, actually doesn't work for the public sector, for the private sector as well. At the moment, there are a whole range of liability and risk issues that cannot be addressed by property owners and some of the platform operators. There's bylaw enforcement that needs to be taking place around the drivers, around the drivers themselves, around the vehicles themselves, around the licensing of the vehicles, around the customer standards, the service standards that are there. All of this in the context of policy silence, the private sector cannot begin to act in a coherent way and in a way that collaborates with government. And then the second part of it is that we would like to impact on e-bike and e-delivery compliance by involving the key actors who would surface the industry working. So if you look on the right there, the idea is that the people who would be contributing to this pilot are people who have a vested interest. They are running active businesses, whether they own like Rosebank Management District, they are managing Rosebank as a node, and there's an infringement issue around where the bikes park. There's a refuse issue, there's a ablution facilities issue that is on the public pavement that is affecting the node as a whole. The mall owners have got tenants who are successful tenants, but the idea is that how do you continue to support them and their businesses in providing or contributing to some of these facilities. Those are some of the issues that come up. The idea is that the pilot is intended to grow, start with 15 bikes, move on to 50 riders and maybe a second location, and then expand the riders and locations in time. What is interesting about what we're doing is that we're not testing the e-bikes themselves. There's a lot of technology that is out there and people who are testing the bikes themselves. But what we are after is the data that comes from those bikes as they do those deliveries. And what we'll be targeting as part of this pilot is the people part of environment, targeting underserviced township youth to participate in this growing economic activity, hence our partnership with the Greater Alex Chamber of Commerce, but it's also surfacing private sector motivations and conditions for sustainability. My little experience in engaging with private sector players of all types in the Rosebank area is that everybody is actually supportive of the sector. Maybe it's a South African thing, maybe it's a Joburg thing, I'm not sure. But everybody I've raised this pilot with has been looking to how to participate. They understand the need and would be, under the right conditions, in a position to contribute to shaping public policy on this because it works for them as well. And then we need to explore the use of private sector resources for public benefit infrastructure. Simply put, public transport as well as the e-delivery sector is it's a type of public benefit infrastructure. It's new, and private sector players are contributing to that. some of the delivery platforms have found very unique ways of leveraging these private resources. The idea is that how do we coordinate a range of players to bring their influence, their money, their capacity into making services that serve the public work, and then a framework for evidence-based reporting, mainly to be able to surface the sector and to drive policy. The other part of it, as a private sector player, and maybe because I'm getting older, Marlus, I think most people need to get to the point. We've all got livelihoods that we need to build for ourselves, but also for people around us and the communities around us. The riders in this whole arrangement currently are completely ignored. In the context of policy silence, people get exploited. It's not different for the taxi industry. It's not different in the e-delivery sector. And by taking a rider's perspective and involving youth, we wanted to take the view that youth currently have the ability of, there's the minimum wage that they could, theoretically, if they could find a job, that's what they'd be entitled to. By becoming an e-delivery driver or rider, they could actually make that money themselves through participating in this. And with a bit of agency and a bit of training and a bit of exposure and support, this is already being achieved by one of our partners, Green Riders in Cape Town, who through training, and they've allowed the riders to be more service oriented. And with training and better behaviors that are customer centric, the riders are beginning to shoot the lights out. They are earning more and more revenue for themselves in the current model, which far surpasses the basic minimum wage. And for our purposes in the pilot, this is something that we'd like to showcase, but more importantly, test out with 15 to 20 riders that we'll have. There's obviously going to be attrition. Not everybody's meant to be a delivery rider. We've got room for that. But those who can take to it and have the aptitude and appetite for it, they could possibly earn themselves quite a healthy living participating in this growing sector in South African cities. To end, there's a few assumptions that I've had for myself in this whole project, and in talking about building an enabling ecosystem. And the first one there is considering the agency of unemployed youth. The way that we've structured this pilot is that we want to make sure that we align the experience of youth on this pilot as closely as possible to the real world. The real same incentives, same motivation, same operating environment. So there's no stipends that they'll get. They'll literally get access to a bike, which is going to be their subsidy. The bikes are currently rented by the drivers. That's the only component that will be missing from the people who will be joining our pilot. Everything else will be exactly the same. They'll wake up every day, they'll keep the same hours, they'll have access to the bike, and they'll be doing deliveries of exactly the same goods that any other delivery rider will do. Second part of it, which is, can we integrate private agendas at neighborhood level? The pilot is actually looking to specifically practice collaborative planning and aligning private sector agendas. Everybody involved in this is volunteering, all those logos that you see, and the public sector partners have opted to participate in here, seeing the value and seeing the private sector being organized. So it's daring to take a look in a very small scale, very local scale, at what private sector agendas can do. But also importantly, we need to consider providing responsive road and pavement infrastructure. Rosebank is also unique because some of the property owners have already provided both bike lanes and sheltered pedestrian walkways. This is something that in a Rosebank area can still be multiplied to other property owners, especially if it was a directive and part of the planning legislation regulations for the Rosebank area. This is something that we'd like to impact on. And yeah, the road transport infrastructure is actually treated as something completely separate, something that we want to look at. The third part of that is what makes for smart cities in post-COVID Africa. So what is our contribution as the Global South to the Smart City Dialogue? And we've picked specifically the e-delivery sector, which is informal and unregulated. Much as you've got the fancy Uber and Mr. Delivery app on your phone, all of it is as informal as the taxi industry right now. And new technology, which is our belief, is more transformative for the developing world problems. That's the belief that drives this pilot. And then lastly, what kind of policy can we shape? Can the private sector influence city and provincial legislation? This is what we want to try out in this pilot. Thank you very much for your attention.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andile. I'm very excited to hear what is the current status of the project, and is it going to go? What's happening?
So as an update, the project, as I'm presenting it to you now, is too small. We've been on hold for about the first part of 2024. We're raising funding for the kiosk, and we are halfway there. We'll be looking for sponsors who could help us finance just the batteries kiosk. Everything else is in place. As soon as we've got that in place, the pilot will continue.
No, that's awesome. So maybe there's somebody in the audience that knows somebody that has big pockets to contribute to this great project. I'm going to start off with a video before I'm going to hand over to Mzikhona.
My name is Mzikhona Mgedle. I'm the founder and managing director for Langa Bicycle Hub, a home of mobility and public space. When I was retrenched in 2020, I started to run Langa Bicycle Hub from my second floor flat. And then it started from there by fixing bicycles in the park and also offering a service of deliveries for medicine and for cooked meals coming from community kitchen. I don't think that we can be a country where cars are the only option for people to commute. Unemployed people, when they can't find a job, they come to the hub, they buy a bike, they start doing deliveries. Seeing what the Bicycle Hub has become makes me feel proud and be more confident in showing resilience to the work that we are doing in creating a home of cycling and mobility for all. We should do everything we can to empower each other and connect, communicate, and commute as a collective in Cape Town.
Great. So now I'm going to hand over to Mzikhona, who's going to talk about his personal experience in the Langa Bicycle Hub.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mzikhona Mgedle. I'm the founder and managing director for the Langa Bicycle Hub, an initiative which was inspired by COVID-19 and how we were responding to the crisis back then. So the Langa Bicycle Hub is a home of non-motorized mobility and a public space, a place-making space for all. We are currently located in a government facility, but back then we were operating in a public park, a dump site, which led us to where we are now. We have 14 staff members. We have partnered with Yes for Youth and Stellenbosch University for internship programs for people who work at the hub to explore new innovative ways of working, new ways of creating social employment in communities where there is too much crisis and challenges. So we have so many programs that we offer as the Langa Bicycle Hub. This was the main need after we have discovered that many people are taking up spaces with bicycles, children competing with cars, the relationship which it was toxic then between motorists and cyclists, including people walking. We started by having these learn to cycling safety lessons in parks. So these are partnered lessons where we collaborate with government, collaborate with Pedal Power Association, Bicycle Empowerment Network. The plan is to educate so many people who have been on bicycles in our community, but the challenge is that the cycling safety education was needed, because people are cycling on highways, people are competing with cars, people don't wear helmets. People already in Langa, the cycling culture has been there, but it's just that it has been unsafe, it has been disrespected by other road users. So we have a platform which is public space mobility platform, where there are actors like government, non-government stakeholders, street committees, and also including neighborhood watches which are cycling. So the platform is to shape Langa in a different way, that it's not only a car that can commute people around here. The taxi industry is also involved in a way that we have them as a lead backbone transport in this community, because ever since COVID, trains have not been functional. So we have the taxi industry, the government, and road users, including organizations which have to do with cycling safety or education and cyclists. So the platform is to see an opportunity for us all to share the road, which has already been happening. So we have these cycling safety lessons taking place in our premises, as you can see in the picture as well. So this is our second offering to the community, a bike maintenance training. As we have discovered that many people in the community are cycling already, we needed to offer a lesson where people can share skills about fixing bicycles, share skills about whenever there are bike buses, how to share routes that are safer when you are leaving this community, going to other communities, going to the CBD. So many people are cycling here, looking for work, going to school, and also social cycling is a culture in this community, from kids to adults. So this training is mainly offering a need for the people who want to learn how to ride, how to fix their bicycles. And we share skills to those who knows and those who don't know how to. And it is becoming a supported program, not only within government, even with the community, where everyone who owns a bike will come and connect with other people. So this program is run, it's facilitated every day from Monday to Friday. And then on weekends, we have social rides that are supporting this program for people to connect and share knowledge about cycling. So the city of Cape Town, where we are located, invested on a pump track, 1.3 million. After they have built this facility, they didn't have knowledge or knowing who's going to facilitate activities here. And then we've been trying to build relationship with them and eye-marking other spaces where we wanted to make use of. Luckily, they chose us to come and facilitate activities here. So what we are doing in this space, we're offering an opportunity for people to learn about pump track. This is a career on its own, as you can see. So many kids loved it, and many adults who would like to also give it a try as well. There have been so many, even sub-ward councillors are making use of the facility. It's on the highway as you are exiting the airport going to the CBD. It's a facility of its own first kind in the community. It is a vibrant space where people can come, connect. People are holding meetings within these up and down hills of the pump track. So the plan here is to develop champions of tomorrow, the young stars who can compete in many races. We are also looking into partnering with cycling initiatives like Tour de France and outside the country. We have some people which have been scouted by other pump track which are already established, which are going there to develop their skills, and it can be a career, sport career on its own. So we also have a bike delivery training. We are standing in the training line, reason being because bike deliveries in our township are so informal. There's no app needed. Around about 25 which are working with us, and a number of others which are also not working with us, individuals which are owning bicycles. They start making money with deliveries. How this is done, you'll find them queuing next to shopping malls, supermarkets, next to liquor stores, next to any place where you will see public space, and also people shopping. All those interchange spaces, you will also get to see a lot of people which having their own bicycle deliveries. It's more like the taxi industry. We're doing it in a way that we're trying to answer the need about bike deliveries. Many people in our communities are walking long distances to shops. Now there is a solution for that, where even elderlies, they don't need to walk long distances to shop. They call us via WhatsApp and then they give us, there is trust, which is so informal that we are exploring ways of how we can formalize. Other people are giving us their bank details to go and do shopping with them, sending us e-wallet, cash send to do deliveries for them and drop them in their doorstep. There is a need to formalize this. As it is informal, it is becoming the most fast way to create social informal employment with bicycles in our community. Our government is not yet adapting into trying to find ways and formalizing this, changing policies, and also providing a way that these riders can be safe. So the riders are at the age of 16 up until at the age of 31. As I've mentioned, that 25 of them are under our Yes for Youth program, but there's many of them. As I can tell you, even now, it's very busy with so many kids and with so many adults and children riding bicycles, doing bicycle deliveries or doing social rides in this community today. So this is our opportunity of trying to find ways of how we formalize the work we do. We partnered with so many tour guides in the community where they rent bicycles from us. After renting these bicycles, they do mobility tours. Currently, we are the only company which is locally based that is offering bike tours, and it is a collaboration between individual tour operators where they come to us and rent bicycles, and us working with government and non-government stakeholders where we do learning journeys with bicycles. Let's say that a department within the city wants to investigate about developing a park or changing infrastructure in a park. They will come to us and then they will learn more about the work we do and how that park can integrate the activities that we do. So we call those learning journeys on bicycles. So these are the pictures to show some of the things that we have done by advocating for non-motorized transport. This is next to the taxi rank. As you can see on the right, there's a taxi parked. There is also a zebra cross. Ever since we started, we had less than 10 zebra crosses in this community, but now we have close to 25 zebra crosses, because whenever we see an incident that is involving a cyclist or someone walking and a motorist, we always inform our councillor to spend their budget allocation in building zebra crosses. And now the government is looking into a way, after consulting with us for a period of 2 years, of how we can accommodate cycling, because the way that the apartheid system disabled this community is that many roads are so narrow and it has got only 2 entrances, which doesn't allow so much development when it comes to building cycling lanes. But we can do more into trying to provide a street calm so that people cycling with cars on the road, they can feel safe, because there are many zebra crosses, and also there are places whereby we have enforced one way for cars not to move in both directions. So this is happening through the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape government, and us as a consulting partner on the ground. Many of our recommendations have been used. I've got a report which is separate. I'm happy to connect for those who would like to read the report from the city. So this report is highlighting most of our recommendations, because we've been doing the work on the ground, and most of the engineers and city planners, they don't work only in this community. They are not closely related to the challenges of people walking and cycling. So that's why they saw the need to partner with Langa Bicycle Hub. So this is my quote, that the only way we can do is to let's focus on what is strong. All these years we have seen so many wrong things, but what is strong is that many people are cycling in our community. Many people are walking. There are people who walk from here to the Cape Town CBD, also linking their road to highways. And how do we focus on what is strong as a collective in order to make Langa a cycling safely organization, and not only for cycling, for other people which are walking on the streets, how they can feel safe, because this community is so overcrowded. Anyone in Cape Town who would choose, there was a study done by the University of Cape Town that anyone who would choose to live in township, which one is the Langa came as the main community where everyone would love to stay in. The reason being is that it's closer to so many resources. It's closer to the CBD. It has got its own history. It has got its own political challenges, but it's becoming so much innovative and safe. It is big on tourism. So many people want to live here because it is diverse in a way that you will also get to see many people relocating to stay here, even outside South Africa for good, to start families here. You will see a lot of development with service delivery when it comes to government. It is in a place where it is well located and well resourced with opportunities, even though we have challenges, but we're building stronger as a collective with so many role players. Thank you. That is my presentation.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to see like what you have achieved and how you stay motivated to keep on doing what you're doing. It's really great. Okay, are there any questions from the audience for either Andile or Mzikhona? So there was a message in the chat from Elizabeth, I think it was Elizabeth Davies. For Andile, where would the riders keep their bikes? At home or at a depot of some sorts? I'm concerned about security and theft. I see that he's responded in the chat. The e-bikes would be kept at a central location for the duration of the pilot and managed on a roster to available riders. If nobody has a question, I'll come up with some questions. Mzikhona, do you know of any initiatives like what you're doing in Johannesburg or in other cities, major cities in the like a network of you super people to get people cycling?
We have so many friends within mobility and partners. We have the culture cycle led by Andile Mavunta, which is the same initiative but different in a different community. We have Cloudy Deliveries, which is also doing deliveries and partner to us at Langa Bicycle Hub in Cape Town. We know Green Riders. We have done a work with them about e-bike training and help them to recruit. And also in Johannesburg, we are friends with Mpumi Bukiponi. I'm learning from what he has achieved when it comes to tourism in Vilakazi, in Soweto. We've also speaking in platforms like the Smarter Mobility Africa for 3 times. And yeah, we learn and also share as we go. It's like building a plane while you fly it as well.
Nice. And you were mentioning something. You were mentioning like the barriers where, like if you're cycling and you're close to a highway, like how do you? I mean, you can't cross the highway. Like, if there was one thing that government could do for you, what would it change? What would you recommend to them to say, like, okay, if you change this, it would make the city so much better for cycling?
Currently, there is so much loud advocacy on what should be on policy, and we are part of those. There is an active mobility forum led by the Young Urbanist and Culture Cycles together with Langa Bicycle Hub and other partners. The plan is to create short trips within communities. People in Langa should have an opportunity to cycle to and close by community. And also what I would like to see personally for me, because I'm also one of those people who are linking their routes to highways, is that the way that the Western Cape government was built to gatekeep other communities with highways. You can see a community with naked eyes when you're on a bike and creating your own route. But once you drive, it seems to be far. I think that's what special planning was designed for, to mislead and confuse and to gatekeep people on how they move and where they stay. And that has made so many damages when it comes for people to connect routes. Now that we have highways, if government can change policies in creating cycling corridors. I know this is a political debate currently. Maybe it can be done, maybe it won't be done, but there is a need for it because there are so many school children who are having walking buses. They walk on highways. They risk their lives to get to school because they can't afford a taxi fee. The trains are no longer working. Taxis are expensive. There are not enough My City buses, especially to not developed communities like township. There are not enough golden arrow buses, especially to other township people who wants to commute and access communities. If government can, we've been thinking from the car perspective for so long in designing our cities, which is a problem in our current state, that we really need to think beyond cars when we're developing new cities. Let's think for people who have ways to walk, ways to cycle, how do they connect with these communities?
Thank you. And Andile, what would your answer be if government can do one thing to assist you with your project?
One thing.
Just one.
I would say they would write regulation. Even bad regulation is better than no regulation. And where we've been in the past few years is that we are sitting in a situation where government hasn't made a call. And one thing that's interesting and powerful about South Africa is that every sphere of government is a creator of statute. Even a bylaw can lead what province and national does. If they would put something down that creates a framework, it's almost like that regulation would be the rules of the game. At the moment, there are no rules to the game, so the playing field is completely open, and it's chaos. So that's the power of regulation, and then you work many years to fix it after that.
Yeah. So sometimes it's better to be in an unregulated environment. There's lots more opportunities there to bend the rules. Dieter Borgo, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thanks so much, Marloes, and thanks to Andile and Mzikhona. And this question is for both of them. Cars in South Africa are aspirational, especially for people who haven't had access in the past to economic opportunities and the status, in inverted commas, that cars bring. How, in your work, have you seen perceptions around that changing in terms of ecomobility and in terms of cycling? How would you change people's perceptions around the status that a car brings? Thanks.
So for me, in order for us to get people commuting is not to say cars are not good for the community, because cars are like, people feel safe, especially women, they feel safe driving than cycling. There has been a shift, but this shift is mostly like many people would come to our events with cars, having their bicycles at the back on a trailer or in a bike rack to join a ride, like to get to know the community. And then after that, even politicians do this. After that, they are back on their car, stuck on traffic. The only thing which I can see as a shift is that COVID has told us another world, has showed us another world that we were not aware of, because we couldn't isolate. People started to see other alternatives of cycling, of walking, in order for them not to, we were told to wear masks, and public transport was not a thing. No one would sit next to someone else in a car. Ubers were not available. So many people started to cycle and many people started to walk, especially in the township. So our plan is to create a shared mobility for all. What do I mean by that? Giving people alternatives. I'm not telling people that we should stop cycling, we should stop driving cars. A bike is healthy, a car is not healthy. Let's create shared mobility for all, but government should consider people first, not the main mode of transport, which is a car, not the four-wheeler, which Andile has been talking about. Let's create alternatives and people get to choose and start to be innovative. And now we are forced with so many challenges that we are faced to find alternatives in anything. So we have so many people. Our shift that we have seen is that people are cycling bicycles on short trips. And then when they had to do long trips, they take a car or they take a taxi. But they also want to have a bicycle to their destination when they are driving. So let's offer alternatives where communities are cycling. Let's create cycling communities that are connecting to each other, which are closer to each other. That allows us to make ways of other mode of transport, not only cars. Thank you.
Mzikhona, I cannot agree with you more. Ditebo, from my perspective, I think Mzikhona hit the nail on the head. It's about choice. And all of these micromobility options, the different modes of transport, be it a tuk-tuk or a three-wheeler or a bike that looks like a scooter, or even the hoverboards and the ones that you stand on. All of those options are now available and are being used on public roads. And they're being used, I don't know whether it's illegally or without legality, because it's not illegal. Metropolis have got no way of regulating their use. The perspective I come from is that South African cities and South African cities in particular don't look at the user. What Mzikhona is talking about is actually taking an inside-out view where there's people, there's a community, there's certain behaviors, and you want to enhance those. As a town planner, I'm the first one to tell you that town planners don't understand this. And what we've got in legislation right now is blind to what people are actually doing in our cities. And if we dare to look, there's so much nuance. Places are very, very individual. They've got their own strengths, they've got their own preferences that are beginning to emerge. And when I was saying regulate, I want us to regulate for that, for the people that are here, for the people that are in those parts of those cities, of the same city, that are just different. They prefer to walk, they prefer to cycle, and why doesn't our infrastructure reflect this? And I think in that way we can have cities that are more responsive to the people that are here, that can live a better life. In many ways, this is not a big shiny target, but it's people living quality lives that is going to be better. And then you don't have to have a flashy car to show off to your friends. Rather have functionality and at a decent price. If everybody in the family, 3 or 4 people, can have a bike, we can get to everywhere we need to. South Africa's got great weather, maybe not Cape Town, but the rest of South Africa has got really good weather. And the world over, we are really blessed with a lot of opportunity to be different. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Cape Town might not have the right weather, but they don't have hills like we have in Joburg. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? I know that there's a couple of people from Botswana here as well, so we would also like to hear from your perspective what it would be. Just to add to that conversation as well, it's like we often forget that, like, because we are the ones that are driving our cars, is that 80% of our population doesn't. And like still all the focus when it comes to widening roads, widening highways, when there's traffic jams and all that. But what we also forget is that the middle income people are going to come up and they're all going to buy a car. And where are those guys going? Like at some point we can't keep on widening our roads, or that would be a very and not such a great environment to live in, actually. So we do have to start thinking about, like you're saying, choice of mode of transport. Tabby, I saw your hands. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm from Botswana, and we are like brothers and sisters. So everything that you say, I share the same sentiments. And actually, I wish you guys can all come here and talk to our policymakers. Andile, I just want you to come here and do another pilot project. The same to everyone who presented, Mzikhona as well, because I totally shared the same sentiments. And I only see small kids, it's winter now, walking long distances. And back in the day when we were growing up, we never had these issues because it was safe. Life was beautiful, but now there's a lot going on. And I just wish, one day we just pause and say, let's take care of, the pedestrians, let's take care of our cities through, the pilot projects that you are saying this, because I know it's elections this year and I know they want to seem to be doing something. If they can just do this one, oh my goodness, everybody will love them. So thank you so much for the presentation. I think we need to have conversations. Collaborating is beautiful because sometimes these are brothers and sisters, our uncles, they need help. Sometimes we just have to just knock and say, this is how we can, we can help you and collaborate. As long as you speak their language, I think they will understand, because we work with government. It's not easy because sometimes they shy away from asking the private sector to help them. I'm from the Botswana Green Building Council. I'm also an interior architect. I run an interior design company. So we advocate for things like this. And yeah, so I'm a family to you guys. I'm always joining this webinars. Thank you so much for such a presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. That wasn't actually a question, but thanks for sharing your experience. And yes, we do need to collaborate more, and hence we have the Regenerative Collaborative. So we totally share your sentiments.
Maybe if I may come in, Marlus, on the back of Tebogo's input, having been on both sides, what is often, I can't stress this enough, especially to private sector actors, is that when people sit in government, they actually don't know better. And in South Africa in particular, the legislation doesn't allow for experimentation. The procurement legislation, the way it's set up, doesn't allow for officials to be involved in projects that might fail. And that's effectively what we are creating a platform for, especially forums like yours today and others that are created that have businesses that are competing, are critical for government, because then they can't be associated with one or other party. They can come to an industry event and understand what are the trends, and even contribute to how they see certain things. If they were to sit with Andile Skosana and his company, it would be a problem, because then I might have privileged information. The purpose of the pilots and the work that Mzikhona is doing and what you're doing is very important for building, let's say, professionals on both sides of the fence that can talk to each other and talk progressively. Thank you.
Thank you. So true. And out of interest, Mzikhona, like, what percentage of your business is reliant on fundraising? Do you manage to keep the business going on, like, is it sustainable, or do you still rely on private sector to fund some of your business?
Thank you. So we do have some sustainable income. I wouldn't say our backbone is to always rely on private funding to run activities. The tours and the bike deliveries are our generational income that are sustaining us to keep on doing the work that we are doing, even though sometimes we have to look for investment or funding. But we do have, and also funders love that, to see that there is an income generation within, because what we are doing, it's something that many people are still discovering to do, and especially within government. They would compete into supporting a bicycle initiative than to responding to service delivery. So that's why we always generate income by our own selves, which is through bike deliveries, bike maintenance, and also bike tours, which is a biggest income generator for our initiative. So I can say we are in a transitioning process now, because we've been learning as we do for so many years, from 2020 up until now. And now we are starting to have more systems in place. We are starting to have more opportunities where we have interns working with us so that they support us to generate income for the projects that we are doing to sustain ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear, because then your business is running based on your income, which makes it even more sustainable in the end. So that's great to hear. Andile, you were mentioning that there was a similar project happening in Cape Town. Can you share more of that? Is it greener, something greener? Can't remember what it was, but you mentioned something that there was a similar project in Cape Town. Do you think it's easier to do it in Cape Town, or is Joburg there also doesn't really matter? I always feel like when I go to Cape Town, everything seems to be a lot more organized and friendly.
I'm a Joburger through and through, so I always think things are better in Joburg. But I must give credit to Cape Town and people like Mzikhona and the private sector players there. There's a much closer relationship between private sector and the state. And people work together, I think, a little bit better, especially around these initiatives that are new and trending. So e-bikes and the likes, one of my partners is Green Riders. Green Riders is based in Cape Town. They've had great support from Westgrow and all other the city themselves. There's a much more open discussion around what is possible in that space. So I think your sense is correct. Things are, for the moment, things are easier in Cape Town, easier to do. But there are many good people in Joburg as well. And one thing that I'm learning as well is that each city has a different community, and the community works in a particular way. It's a completely different story in Durban as well. We need to pay attention to that and use it.
And I guess you have communities within communities, right? The solution for Alexandra would not be the same as a solution for Sandton or Rosebank.
100%. And I mean, that said, Green Riders are doing a great business in the delivery sector. That's one of the partners. The other partners is Go Electric, who are equipment. They bring in the different types of electrified vehicles. I also know of SAPD, also a delivery service, but based in Tembisa specifically. We're getting very local responses to this e-delivery opportunity, doing much the same thing around providing the convenience and responding to the users rather than worrying about legislation.
Yeah, and I guess those solutions are also surrounded like in smaller areas, because you don't want to cycle 20 km to do your delivery, right? It needs to be like within a certain radius. And until there was like a number of years ago, there was the Ecomobility thing in Sandton.
Yes.
And it was a big thing at the time. Do you know if there's anything that came out of that besides those non-used green bicycle lanes in the Sandton neighborhood?
So the history of Joburg, the local government history of Joburg, is that up until 2016, there was a big push around cycle lanes. And that Ecomobility Festival came out. It actually had a showcase of technology, of options, and was trying to popularize cycling in the city. Exactly what Mzikhona is doing in his neighborhood. They were trying to do it at a city scale. There are some reports that have come out of that, and we've got a few unconnected bike lane routes. So there's some bike lanes in Sandton. They don't connect to the ones in Alex. There are others here in Melville and the like. So it's an unfinished idea. And that has got it was completely linked to the political leadership of the city. And those things make sense. And a lot of the people involved in that are involved in this pilot as well. From a property perspective, it's still needed. And I think the community is there, the need is there.
Yeah, at that time, I remember at the time with Solid Green, we had some e-bikes, and we were working together with an e-bike provider and putting some business owners onto their e-bikes and drive past all the green buildings in Sandton, which was lots of fun. And it also gave a lot of people a different perspective of what it is like to be a cyclist in Johannesburg. And actually now this webinar is giving me inspiration again that we should actually start those green tours on bikes again, because it just gives this totally different perspective of using your built environment spaces. Cool. If there's no other questions, I'm gonna wrap up this webinar. So next month we're back again with a topic: sustainable retail spaces, and we've got two speakers, one architect who's going to talk about reinventing how we can reinvent mall spaces again to make them a little bit more human friendly or multi-use. And we've got a speaker about it's a big property developer or mall owner that is going to share their sustainability initiatives in the big malls. And then in August, we are planning something around regenerative landscaping, because we can talk about regenerative buildings, but how does that now interlink with landscaping? So we've got some speakers that can speak about that topic. So that's also going to be a very nice topic. And then I want to close off the webinar with a big thank you to both our speakers. I really love the practicalities of your projects, and it's really amazing. You guys are passionate about this work, and really hope to collaborate in the future with both of you and see how we can take the initiatives further. Big thank you for spending your time with us today. Thank you to our sponsor, SAIA, to waive the fees for the CPD validation for this webinar. We are very grateful to you for doing that. And then again, call for sponsorship. If you know somebody, please let us know. It's really a small amount. So any little bit helps to keep these webinars going. And then lastly, please like us on our social media or YouTube channel. We really like the following and knowing that you guys support what we're doing here. And with that, I'm gonna wish everyone a very nice evening. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I did a lot, and thank you for attending, and I'll see you next month again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Andile. Thanks, Mzikhona.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good work.
Thank you.